Hello, this is Kaushik Chandra Nagarajan from Ivy Professional School. I am pursuing my final year engineering in the stream of information technology from Mumbai University. I am keen on doing a career in data science, so I enrolled for a data science and a machine learning course with Ivy Professional School. As a part of the course, I had to do a project, that is a research project. So in a research project, we have to find a data set on our own through various resources available on the internet, and we have to analyze it and present a report. So here is the data set. Okay, giving a brief on the data set. This data set consists of two tables. One is OYO hotels and one is city hotels. Two sheets here means two tables. So this will be imported as two tables in SQL, and this OYO hotels table consists of 10 attributes, and the city hotel table consists of two attributes, hotel ID and the city. Okay, before moving on to the project, I will just give a brief about SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So it is a language used in data science for handling databases, manipulating data, modifying data, updating, altering, and etc. So it is the most suitable language for database. Advantage of using SQL when compared to other languages and tools is SQL is a language which closely resembles English, which means even a layman can understand what an SQL query does. That is the purpose of the query. So SQL is much simpler to code when compared to R and Python. Moving on to the project. So these two tables need to be imported in MySQL Server or in SQL. So these two tables, OYO hotels and city hotel, can be imported in two methods. So one is using the command prompt and another is using the table data import wizard. The table data import wizard is ideal for dataset with medium or small number of rows. So the city hotel consists of nearly 357 rows. So 358 rows. So this table can be imported using table data import wizard. Whereas we can see that the OYO hotels dataset is a lengthier one, which consists of 2890 rows. So this table is ideal to be imported using the command prompt method. So the advantage of using the command prompt method when compared to the table data import wizard is the command prompt method will take very less time in importing the data. For example, if lakhs and rows will be imported in MySQL, so the table data import wizard method will take nearly hours together to import, whereas 1 lakh and 2 lakh rows would be imported using the command prompt method in hardly few seconds or minutes. So talking about the importing of data, so first a database called OYO is created, then this use OYO query is executed because the database has to be set to OYO. So here I have imported the city hotel using the wizard directly from here. So here you have to select the file path and you have to then click on import next, and you have to set the attributes correctly. So talking about the OYO hotels table, this table has to be created first in the MySQL database because this table is imported using command prompt. So the attributes name should be exactly matched as in your data set. Even the colon and even the syntaxes, exact syntax should be matched, and the data type should be set correctly according to the attribute. Then the MySQL bin path is set here in the command prompt, and after writing a few commands, the data is imported. Moving on to the business part of the project. So here is the presentation which is prepared from analyzing the data. So here are the contents of this PowerPoint presentation. Moving on to the first part. that is a case study. So this slide basically gives us a brief info about the case study. So this case study consists of two data sets, as I told before. The first data set consists of the hotel bookings of various customers, that is the hotel details, when they booked, the price, the discount, the rate, and etc. The second data set contains the hotel ID and the city where it is located. Objectives of this project. So the objectives were to analyze the bookings for the given time period and publish the findings based on the data analyzed. So this data analysis part is to be done using SQL. Moving on to the data analysis part, the most important part. For analyzing the data, various factors affecting the business, that is important attributes in terms of data science language, should be listed out. Attributes here refer to the column name in a layman's language. So from this attribute, we can see that booking ID and customer ID are not so important. Customer ID is important only when it is counted uniquely. It is not the values inside the customer ID and booking ID are not so important in terms of business perspective. We can take many daily life scenarios like uh, if we consider 10 a data set having 10,000 computers, so the data set will contain even the product number and the serial number of all the computers, which is not important in terms of data science language. I mean, the values inside the product number and serial number are not important. Only the product number and serial number are important as a whole, as a counting variable, it is important. Similarly, most important factors affecting the business are average room rates of different cities, number of hotels in different cities, cancellation rate, number of bookings in a given period, discount offered, number of nights stayed by customers, how many days trial bookings are made, and the revenue. Moving on to table analysis. This dataset consists of two tables. This dataset consists of bookings from in the first quarter of the year 2017, that is bookings from January 2017 to March 2017. It consists of 357 different hotels across 10 cities. So how this line was obtained is, it was obtained by running two SQL queries, which I'll demonstrate here. Here select count of distinct hotel ID from city hotel. So this so this will give us the number of hotels in total. That is the number of distinct number of hotels. So the word distinct here is extremely important, because if the distinct is not there, the same hotel ID may be repeated 15 times, 20 times, or many more number of times. So we cannot say hotel ID 357 as uh, 20 hotels. We cannot count hotel ID 10 as 10 hotels if it has occurred 10 times in a data set. The same thing stands for district of city. So there are 10 distinct cities in this data set. So if Hyderabad is occurring 10 times, we cannot say that there are 10, we cannot count Hyderabad as 10 different cities. If Hyderabad and Mumbai and Bangalore are occurring 10 times, 5 times, and 3 times respectively, we cannot count them as 18 cities. We have to only count them as 3 cities. So the word distinct is very important. So we can observe that by removing the word distinct, how the values are differing. We can see we are getting a value 357 if we write count of city. So the word distinct is extremely important. Number of hotels in different cities. Again, this is a pie chart. So this pie chart was prepared by executing a SQL query first, and then the values were entered in a Excel sheet. So this pie chart was formed. So the values are found using an SQL query, which I'll demonstrate. We can it was observed that Gurgaon, Delhi, Bangalore have more hotels, and Calcutta, Pune, Jaipur have lesser number of hotels. So this is the query to obtain the pie chart or the number of hotels in different cities. So select count of hotel ID city from city hotel, and it should be grouped by city. So if this group by city clause is not present, it will give us just sum of the hotels, that is 357. So this is not an correct value. So the group by city clause is very important. Then only we will get the number of hotels for each city. We can see that Delhi here has the most number of hotels, while Kolkata has the least number of hotels. Average room rate in rupees by city. So this was a bar graph which represents the average room rate in rupees by city. We can observe that Mumbai has the highest average room rate and Gurgaon has the least average room rate. So again, this was calculated using an SQL query here. First of all, a new column called rate was formed. As we can see here that rate is not given in the data set. So a new column called rate was formed by using the alter command, and then the rate was updated using a formula. So this was the formula for rate. This actually means that if the number of rooms is 1, then the price should be divided by number of nights. The number of rooms booked by the user or the customer is more than 1, then the price should be divided by number of nights, which in turn should be divided by number of rooms. So the round function here is used to round off the value to 2 decimals. This is a query to form a new column called rate, and this update command is to set the formula of rate, and this is a query to retrieve the rates of average rates of different cities. You can see that the rate in Mumbai is 5128.27 and the rate in Gurgaon is 2602.99 rupees, which is the least. This is just another way of presenting the room rates. This is known as a list. So this list represents the room rate in increasing order of cost. Gurgaon has the least room rate, so it is written first, and Mumbai has the highest room rate. So this list is represented in an increasing order of cost. Talking about cancellation rate. Cancellation rate is the number of bookings cancelled for a particular number of bookings. For example, if 100 people do a booking, out of which 23 cancel, then 23% is concluded as a cancellation rate. From the cancellation rate, it was observed that Delhi has the highest cancellation rate while Pune has the lowest cancellation rate. Discussing the nature of cancellation rate, as a general trend, cancellation rate was about 25% in all the cities except for Pune, which is quite evident from this graph. Delhi had the highest cancellation rate while Pune had the lowest one. Cancellation rate was almost the same in all the 3 months, that is January, February and March, which is why I have not drawn a bar graph or any other visualization chart to represent the cancellation rate by months. Bookings by month. This graph here represents the number of bookings made in the months of January, February and March. This graph could even involve bookings which are made for later in the year, but these bookings were made in the month of January, February and March. For example, the bookings could be for even the months of April, June, July or December, but those bookings would have been made in the months of January, February and March. We can see that Gurgaon has highest number of bookings and Calcutta has the least. Talking about month-wise, we can conclude that March observes slightly higher number of bookings in most of the cities, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Jaipur and in Calcutta, Mumbai and Noida and Pune also, while in Gurgaon, Delhi and Chennai, January saw the highest number of bookings. This graph talks about the bookings made for January, February and March. So this graph basically means that if a booking is made in the month of January, that booking is for January. From the bookings made or shown in this graph, these bookings are such that the check-in date is either in the month of January, February and March, which means the check-in date could be from January 1st, 2017, latest till 31st March 2017 only. It will not be later than 31st March 2017. Whereas the previous graph would involve even the bookings made after 31st January 2000, 31st March 2017. Talking about the bookings, all the 3 months saw the same number of bookings. March witnessed slightly higher number of bookings. Bangalore, Gurgaon and Delhi were popular in terms of bookings, while Calcutta was the least popular in terms of bookings. By the difference of these two graphs, we can do a correct conclusion that people are not booking very much in advance. For example, people are booking in a 2 months gap. So this was calculated by a query which gives us the difference between the date of booking and the date of check-in. We can see that 1400 bookings were made on the day of check-in only, and 626 bookings were made prior to the day of check-in, just a day prior to the day of check-in. In total, there were 2890 bookings in this dataset, out of which 1400 were made on the date of check-in itself, which is a cordon evidence that 50% of the booking was made only on the day of check-in. And if we add up 1400 plus 626 plus 223 plus 120, we can also conclude that nearly 81% of the bookings or 82% of the bookings were made in less than 3 days notice. Just one booking was made in 264 days notice. Nature of the bookings. Nearly 50% of the bookings were made on the day of check-in only, which was shown by the calculation. Over 80% of the bookings were made with less than 3 days prior to a date of check-in, which was also shown by a calculation. Very few number of bookings were made in advance, which was quite evident from the query which I executed. Most of the bookings involved only a single room. Nearly 80% of the bookings involved a stay of one night only. This slide talks about revenue based on different cities. So again, this graph was obtained by executing an SQL query, which I would not wish to go inside because it was similar to this slide only. So if I do it very long, then the presentation would become a boring and a lengthy one. So I want to make it a crisp one. We can correlate this graph and the cancellation rate graph. That is, the city with highest cancellation rate will have the difference between the gross revenue and the net revenue maximum, and the city with the lowest cancellation rate will have the difference between the gross revenue and the net revenue the least. That is Pune. Pune has very less difference between the gross and the net revenue, and Delhi has the largest difference between the gross and the net revenue. So these are rankings of different cities presented on the basis of gross revenue and net revenue. Talking about the revenue, gross revenue earned was 1 crore 19 lakh 17,462 rupees in the months of January, February and March 2017. That is also the first quarter of 2017. This also includes the cancelled bookings because it is a gross revenue. Excluding the cancellations, the revenue earned was 73 lakh 81,141 rupees. This amount also includes the customers who have booked but did not turn up. This revenue excludes the discount offered. So the gross revenue includes the cancellations, whereas the net revenue includes the bookings which people made and did not turn up. Gross revenue also includes the no-show bookings, while net revenue includes the uh, people who have turned up, no-show bookings, but it does not include the bookings which were cancelled. Gurgaon was highest in terms of net revenue, while Calcutta was the least. Revenue in terms of months did not show much variation, which is why I have not presented revenue in terms of months in a form of a bar graph. Talking about the discount, 16 to 18% discount was offered in all the cities. Average of 17% discount was offered in all 3 months. There is not much of variation in discount by month or city, which is why I have not shown a bar graph for discount. Here are the findings of the case study. More discount should be offered in cities with lesser demand. Cancellation rate should reduce in most of the cities, as it was observed that cancellation rate is more than 25% in most of the cities. Bookings are generally made on the day of check-in or a day prior to check-in. So the certainty of the customer should be better ensured. Whether the customer is genuinely going to come or not, the company should have better certainty or better guarantee that the customer is coming, which will help in cutting the company the cancellation rates. And more customers would check in rather than cancel. Bookings generally consisted of single room for single night. More discount must be given in Delhi, Gurgaon and Bangalore to increase the occupancy rate. The number of hotels should increase mainly in Mumbai because the average room rates were observed to be very high in Mumbai. Then the increase in number of hotels will give better revenue and earnings to OYO. Discount should vary by city and month. That is, the discount should be extremely dynamic in nature because every city would have different kinds of people, and all months would have different varieties of people checking in. For example, June and July months would have more and more office people checking in, and months like December, October, and May will have family and vacationers checking in. So the discount should vary largely by city and month. It should be extremely dynamic, which will help in company optimizing the business. Okay, that is it from the business part of the project. Talking about the technicalities and technical part of the project and the difficulties faced while doing this project in SQL. So these are the two data sets given here. One is the OYO hotel and other is the city hotel data set. So this consists of 10 attributes, the OYO hotel data set. We can observe that the date of booking is not given correctly. So even if I click on the dates and if I try to change in date format, the date is not getting changed, which means the data here given is not clean. So the data should be cleaned first. So the data was cleaned using a Power Query. So the Power Query facility is available only in Microsoft 365. So using the Power Query, the data was clean, and after cleaning, here is how the data looked. We can see this is in a proper format as this data is changing correctly according to the format we set. So in importing the two tables, the difficulties faced are first in the cleaning of data and second in the importing of the table. So there are two methods to import table in SQL. That is, one is using the command prompt, which is usually preferred for larger tables or tables with more number of data sets, more number of rows. And the other method is using the table data import wizard, which is usually preferred for short tables or table with less number of rows. So this OYO hotels dataset consisted of nearly 2890 rows, which is why I chose to import using the CUI method, that is the command prompt. So in command prompt, you have to first open the command prompt here, then set the MySQL bin path and write a few commands and load this table to SQL. Before doing all the command prompt things, you have to first create the database, and you have to set the database, and you have to first create the table in the MySQL server. So the attribute should exactly match as given in the Excel sheet, that is the data set. So the booking ID here consisted of a hyphen. So here also it should be exactly the same, and you should set the appropriate data types for all the attributes. Other is using the CUI method, which is given directly here. This table data import wizard, just click on the file by the path and you can import it directly, checking the data types for all the attributes. Other difficulty faced in importing the data is regarding the date. Apart from this, the date when imported to SQL will only be accepted in a text format. Dates are generally not in a format which will suit SQL. SQL will suit only YYYYMMDD format. So after importing the date in form of a text, couple of queries were written. So this table here states that alter table OYO hotels. This command here states that alter table OYO hotels add column new check-in date. So a new column called new check-in date got added, and the old check-in date was converted to new check-in date in a format which will suit SQL. But the old check-in date will stay status quo. It will not get altered. A new column called new check-in date will get created, and the date will be in a format in a new check-in date as it will suit SQL. We can see here that all the three date columns were created a new one as the format suits SQL. You can see check-in and check-out date here, date of booking. These were the original ones as given in the dataset, whereas these are the new check-in date, new date of booking, and new check-out dates. Okay, so that is it from this video. Thank you all for watching my video. Bye.